Greetings Internet, Didier here, and welcome to another deck profile video that we're going to push out for you. This time we're bringing you Tag Team Training Waiting Mill Videl. A very interesting list that I've been working on for several weeks, a few months now, and I actually brought to the Dennis Bowl tournament. I didn't perform as well as I'd hoped, but the deck itself performed well. Really, the deficit came in a few card choices that I should have made differently, as well as my inexperience with Tag Team. But the power of hero allies as well as the +1 mill from Videl makes this deck very strong and have a ton of potential. So let's scan over the list real quick. So as you can see, we have a lot of physical attacks. Very many planning cards, as we'll get in a second. Confrontation. This deck makes great use of Blue Wash and Blue Brace. Very strong. The wonderful hero allies. And of course Gohan ally, which adds to this deck nicely. A few Dragon Balls for control. And then of course we have the training suite here, full of setups. And waiting drill with dominance as well. This deck list is tight and there's a lot going on. But you may ask yourself, why Videl and why training? Well, of course it is because the level 2... with dominance and with her level 1 power pushing you to level 2, you pretty much get to level 2 every single game, even if you don't draw dominance, and you get that +1 mill. So the +1 mill allows you to go turbocharge with any trainings. You only really need 1 or 2 trainings to completely go off on the opponent and mill half their deck. As well as with waiting drill, a single blue arrest can be a 9 mill. It's very strong. And then compounded to that, Videl is the only hero that actually really works well with training and waiting. Not with waiting, but with training specifically. Because she has the +1 mill, and you get the hero allies. That's kind of what sets her apart from Android 17 or Tau or Cell that you may want to also do a kind of training deal with. Well, Videl can do that, but she also has the amazing control from Ox King. And keep in mind, people, hold on, wait, where is this? Where is it? If your MP is, oh look at the foresight of this game. Videl. That's right, people. You get the Rejuve on Ox King. So without further ado, let's go over the attacks. So these are the attacks that we're working with. And as you can see, 2 things. One, we don't play that many attacks at all. We actually have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We only have 17 attacks in this deck. Really not a large amount of attacks whatsoever. And then likewise, another thing that you'll notice is there are actually zero energy attacks in this deck. And why is that? Why are there 0 energy attacks in this deck? Well, the answer is because Videl only likes physical attacks, truly. Her 1 power, which you need to utilize in this deck to get up to the level 2. Her 1 power only adds anger when you reference the AT chart. Now there are some energies that reference the AT chart, but not too many, and especially in blue style, there are really not that many energies that reference the AT chart. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to play enough physical attacks in this deck in order to get up to the 2 without dominance. Dominance is good. This deck plays 2 of them. However, you're not going to see them every single game. You're not going to. So you have to be able to push up to the level 2 without seeing dominance. And that's why this deck plays all these physical attacks. The other thing that you'll see is that this deck doesn't play head knock, which is very controversial. And I understand that. And I want to explain my reasoning because this deck, you know, head knock's a great card. It's 2 endurance. It goes straight for the life. Really good card. I don't need head knock in this deck for 2 reasons. 1, because I have a level 2 power that lowers 2 anger. So I have automatic anger lowering in matchups that I need it on my MP power. And then likewise, the anti-anger that I do play inside my attacks are just simply better than head knock, and I don't want to drop head knock for them. So I run 3 dev blows here, and this is clearly better than head knock because on level 1 it gains me 2 anger. Head knock gains 0 anger on any level on level 1. Plus it's got the extra banishing. Dev blow, I always tell people if dev blow is a 9 overall, dev blow in Videl is an 11. That's how good and how much Videl loves Dev Blow. I find myself playing 2 to 3 Dev Blows in most decks, but definitely almost 3 Dev Blows in every single Videl deck. Likewise with Blue Knee, I wouldn't want to drop Blue Knee for Blue Head Knock because, again, it's a 2 anger card. This card can actually do decent damage. You know, on level 2, this card does 6 damage. This card does 4 damage. Granted, it's a, you know, Head Knock goes for the life, but the damage is comparable. Plus, I need the anger, again, need the anger absolutely to push up to the level 2. It has to happen. So the only flat damage attacks that this deck plays is Blue Arrest, which is for obvious reasons. This deck only plays 2 of them because, you know, you need to set up for it. You need to have the combo for it. If you draw them too early or too many of them, it's not good at all. You need to have the waiting drill out, or you need to make sure that you have those allies in the discard pile mid to late game for this to be a good card. So it's a mid to late game card, so therefore you don't play 3 of it because you play 3 of the cards that you want to see early, and you don't want to see this card early. Likewise, Decapitation can easily copy me a Betrayal or an Arrest when I need it, a Knee in matchups like MPPV matchups that I need to reuse Knee multiple times, or a Lunge. And Decapitation actually has other uses as well, which is why I play in this deck. I actually really want a third one, but I can't find the room. This deck list is so tight. You can play it from your hand to set you to 0. Now, most of the time, you're not going to want to do that, but you do want to keep in mind that use, because as we'll go over later, one of our allies can actually trigger a training mill, and it's very useful to know that if you possibly can, to use Decap from your hand just to set your MP to 0 so that you can trigger more training mill that combat. And to go back here to the most important AT card that we got, the three beautiful print 4 foils that we have here. Blue Lunge is just spectacular. This card is so good. Like, I wish I could play like 9 of these in this deck. Like, it pushes the win condition of the deck by playing setups and drills from the top. This deck plays so many planning cards, so this is a great card. Has 2 endurance, does a massive hit. On level 2, this is coming in for 8 damage. Huge. You can just stage lock someone by throwing this as your only attack in combat, but just stage lock them immediately with this card. Amazing. And plus gaining you an anger on the level 1 again. So a lot of these cards gain you anger, and that's what's very important. You need to hit that level 2 as fast as possible. Likewise, we got the Blue Betrayal in here at 2 for the controlling matchups, the matchups that we want to clear the board. There's not much in this deck that we care about on the board, possibly like a phasing drill or something like that, but not too much. This deck doesn't push too much damage. Probably Lookout Drill would be another that you'd want to get rid of. But overall, not too much on the board we care about, but nonetheless, you want to have that control of 2 Blue Betrayal. And then we got 3 Sinister Chokes to push damage. This is mainly in here, in matchups that smart players are gonna, be attuned to the fact that you're a training waiting deck, and if they get rid of all your trainings, they get rid of all your waitings, you need a way to push damage, and that's what Sinister Choke is for. Also, it's good in Dragon Ball matchups and heavy control matchups that are going to set up a wall against you, or just Dragon Ball matchups in general, because this is pretty much our only method that we have to crit. So you're only gonna get 1 to 2 crits a game really, unless you're truly lucky. So what you got to do is you got to make that single Dragon Ball capture count, or just make sure that you mill them out to the end and then throw the choke as a last ditch effort to kill them. Dragon Ball matchups are tough matchups for this deck, but that's why we play 3 Sinister Choke. So now let's go over the events and blocks. So these are the events and blocks that we're working with. You can see we play a lot of events and blocks in this deck, a lot. Actually, we play 19, which is more than the number of attacks that we play. So this is a very defensive, control-y deck, and that's what you kind of have to understand going into it. You're not really going to go on the aggressive with this deck. You're just going to kind of play a slow game until you can kill your opponent in one mill combat, essentially. So of course we got Time as a Warrior's tool in here. We got 3 Blue Deterrence for the endurance and for the additional anger lower. A lot of times physical decks like to slime with anger, or most anger decks play physical attacks, so this is a great card in those matchups. We got 2 blue Crouch, just because you can almost consider this card stopping 2 physical attacks. If you consider the +1 life card as well as the 3 endurance, you can almost endure 2 attacks with this. And considering that Videl is almost the weakest personality in the game, pretty much you're always going to put this to the top of your deck. We got 3 braces in here. Actually, originally I played this at 2, and I played 3 blue flights, but I actually swapped for the 3rd brace, because brace is ridiculously powerful in this deck. The amount of setups that we play, also the fact that setups are our win condition, this card is just absolutely invaluable. Whenever I see it and I'm playing any deck that I know plays any form of energy attacks, I save this card. The greatest combo with this card that I love is having Blockade in play. You blockade their first attack, you brace their energy attack, placing Blockade back in play. This card essentially becomes 2 to 3 blocks. It's just spectacular. I love it. Blue Flight's amazing for combos, as well as just for waiting. It allows you to trigger your mastery at the end of combat. If you have Roshi in play, you can just banish Roshi and then be able to search with this ability or other abilities. So it enables a lot of things, especially like if they would crit an ally that you really want back in play, like Ox King, or you would want to bounce Ox King and things like that. It's good for combos, but I like it at 2 because you're not always going to do those combos, and likewise, Brace is just much more consistent and has much more power in this deck. Blue Excitement is the best event that was printed, period. I kicked myself for not being in my top 5 when we did the Brewcast on it. But it's just amazing. And not only does it add 9 endurance in your deck, because it's a 3 endurance card, it always helps you. Even if you don't have setups in your discard pile, you're going to be able to banish it as a defense to prevent damage. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a setup, because of the massive amount of setups that we play in this deck. This card does everything for you. It can go aggressive with like a stretch kick or a training. You can play the defensive game by getting a battle readiness or a blockade. So it's literally like an extra block. You can see we play about 11 blocks, but even further than that, we have blockades and we have 3 of these. So really we're at like 14, 15, 16, 17 blocks in this deck easily whenever we need. Excitement is just a card I hold. Whenever I see Excitement, I hold Excitement because it's that damn amazing. This card single-handedly can win you a game by only having a single training in play. You training, excitement training, brace training, save training. Suddenly you've activated 4 trainings with only really 1 in play. Just amazing card, amazing. I can't talk enough volumes about this card. We got Wash at 2. I actually played this at 3, and I did not regret it. I liked it at 3. And I was actually upset that I dropped it down to 2. I did drop it down to 2 just because it is a combo card, but the one big combo there's 2 huge combos with this card in this deck. Obviously, training, it just sticks out in your face. If you training 1 or 2 times, you have 3 or 4 allies on the board, you wash, and then you mill them between, 10 to 20 cards with a single wash. That's kind of crazy, okay? That's an obvious combo. But other combos you can do with Wash is if you have Roshi in play again, you can bounce Roshi to then be able to search. If you have Gohan ally in play, you can bounce Gohan ally to then end combat. Another thing you can do, and one of my favorite things to do with Wash, is you have Ox King in play and 2 or 3 other allies. You bounce with Wash. At the end of combat, then you discard all your other allies except Ox King, put them to the top of your discard pile, have Waiting Drill in play, then immediately play Ox King to rejuvenate 3 to 4 allies to mill your opponent a good 6 to 8 cards. So that's amazing. And Wash is just so good in this deck. It has 2 endurance. Like I said, I had it at 3 and I did not regret it at all. I dropped it down to 2 just because it's a combo card, but I may add in a 3rd one again. And 3 Confrontations. Again, this is a combo deck. I wanted Sphere in here, but I felt Confrontation just way stronger because I can take out their strong attack. I can look at their hand and make sure that they don't have anything to end combat. that's going to stop my training combos, or I can take out their only combat ender, and things like that. I did like Sphere in here, especially against like Supreme Kai with his telepathies ending combat, and Unleash always sucks, so... But I didn't really need Sphere for time, so that's why I opted for the 3 Confrontation instead. I played 1 Sphere in here for a while. I might work in another Sphere, but again, this list is so unbelievably tight. So that's it for the events and blocks, guys. So now let's go over the massive amount of planning cards. So here are the planning cards that we play in this deck. A large number, I think there's 24 planning cards in this deck. Just a very high number of planning. But this is a defensive control deck, and this is what this deck does, people. So that's why the high planning count. You want to play this deck slow. You're low and slow on this deck, guys. And yeah, just overall, you want to make sure that you're dropping those planning cards every time you pass combat. So of course here we got 3 training because this is a training deck. This card is a win condition in itself. And again, you only need 1 of these. You only need 1. That's the beauty of it. If you have 2 or 3 in play, it's just gravy. And that's one of the things that makes Videl a viable training MP over different MPs. Because, for example, you know, if you're not using Challenging Strike in your deck with some of the other MPs, you need more than 1 training. You can't just mill them like 4 or 5 and then say, okay, that's good, I'm glad I did that. No, but Videl is going to be able to instantly mill 2 cards with a single training, and then every other card that leaves play after that is just 2 compounded on top of each other. You only need 1, and that's the beauty of it. We got 2 waiting drills, and we only play 2 waiting drills in here for several reasons. One is because we play Krillin Ally, and a lot of times I would find myself discarding my own waiting drill with Krillin Ally, so I didn't want it in play always. Another thing is, we don't want to see waiting until we actually get to level 2. So again, this comes into line, like if I draw waiting when I'm on level 1, we only play 2 dominance. So if I draw waiting when I'm on level 1, then I know I'm going to discard it when I level, which just sucks. So I only want to play 2 of these because it's a card I want to see mid to late game. You know, really just a card I want to see after I hit level 2. So that's really what it comes down to. But this, just like training, this card is a win condition. So I have thought about going back up to 3. I played 3 in here for a while. I dropped it down to 2 just to slim down the deck. Again, this deck list is so tight. I'd love to play 3, but it's at 2 for now. Dominance is at 2. Amazing card. This deck needs to get to level 2. The only drill that it plays is waiting. So that's why you don't really need 3 dominance. Another reason why I don't play 3 dominance is, again, getting to level 2 is easy when I have this level 1 constant. So I don't need dominance always to get to level 2. Oftentimes I'll find that I'll draw dominance and I just won't really care about it. It'll just serve as a nice blanket for me to trigger at any time to get wait. I just see it as a waiting drill tutor at that point if I want to tutor waiting drill in play, which is great nonetheless. 2 blue blockades. I would love to play this at 3 again, but 2 is just a perfect number for this card. You know, you see it mid, late game, you see it early, you can cycle it. You can just cycle this card so many times that you don't really need 3. 3 is almost overkill, but it's an amazing card. A free block on the board. It's just a wall against your opponent. Your opponent knows you always have that block to play against, and especially late game. Like, dropping one of these late game will just win you the game because you'll just be able to sit on that block all day, and your opponent will have to play around it like a ballerina. This card, Stretch Kick, is just one of those cards. People see it in this list, and they're like, Didier, why do you play Stretch Kick in this list? Well, let me tell you why I play Stretch Kick in this list, okay? It's a 2 anger card. That's the first thing, okay? It is a 2 anger card on the level 1, and it immediately pushes you up to the level 2. The other reason is this deck so randomly beats. Like, it will randomly beat you, and your opponent will just not understand. You'll be playing an energy deck, and the entire game you'll pass and do nothing. And they'll discard all their blocks. They'll be like, this guy's doing nothing to me. This guy's doing nothing. He's doing nothing. What is he doing? He's just passing, playing a bunch of planning cards. Who cares? They'll discard all their blocks, and then suddenly you'll throw a Blue Lunge at them for 8, a Stretch Kick them for 8, you'll Excitement Stretch Kick back into play for another 8, and they're just sitting at you, and you just did 15 cards off the top of their life deck randomly. It's amazing. It's so good. So that's the reason. Random beats. The other reason is that this deck needs an aggressive card to activate training. A lot of times, you know, you'll training once or twice, and then you'll want to go aggressive with setups in some way, shape, or form. Other training decks play, you know, they play blue key buildup. This deck plays blue stretch kick because the physical goes with Videl. She loves physicals. It's perfect for her. Love it, and it can be used with decap too, which is also amazing. 2 battle readiness because most of the good ally tutors in this game are energy attacks, and Videl doesn't like energy attacks. She doesn't. She is extremely weak. A single physical hits her to 0. Now, granted, we have allies, but we can't always guarantee that we're going to have allies in play. A lot of people out there can get rid of those allies. So we needed ally tutors, and most of the ally tutors are energy, but Videl does not like energies. So I wanted a setup in here that I can trigger with, you know, the excitement as well if I wanted to excitement it in play and just get those allies out that I needed. I love that it's a double ally tutor. It's amazing. And so Save is kind of a weird one-of in here. It's actually a very strong card. And if you wonder why we only play 2 dominance, this is the reason why here. Because why play a 3rd dominance when I can just play a Save and possibly just tutor out my dominance early game if I need it. It has 2 endurance. The ally bounce is so real, it will trigger your training as well as it's another way for you to bounce Ox King. There are actually many ways in this deck to bounce Ox King. You know, the Save, the washes, as well as Gohan ally, which is amazing. This is actually the guy that I was talking about earlier when I said the reason that you would want to hit to 0. Gohan ally will shuffle Ox King back in play. So you have several ways that you can bounce. Oh, and Blue Flight as well. Blue Flight can bounce Ox King. So you have like 5, 6, 7 ways that you can bounce Ox King with this deck. I find myself using Ox King, and this is why this deck works, people, okay? Not only does Videl have the plus mill, not only does she have the amazing hero allies for control, but she can play Ox King, get that 3 rejuve, and then bounce him a million times in and out of play to just rejuvenate all day. It's so good. Okay, and Gohan, I mean, he just ends combat, so he gives you that extra combat control and that blanketing. You know, Bulma ally just for ultimate control. You know, choose the orange stare down, the blue betrayal. You know, whatever ally kill they have. You know, the Saiyan spin kick. Whatever thing they're gonna kill with your allies, just choose that card with Bulma. Get it out of there. Unleash if you really want. Master Roshi just simply shuts down some decks. I always tell Kelly Dennis that Hercule is a tier 2 personality always and forever because of Master Roshi ally, and it's completely true. And so play Master Roshi ally against decks and completely screw them. And then Krillin, because drills are everywhere and board control is excellent with Krillin. You can just passively decimate their board, any drill control. Yajirobe, we don't run VTP in here, and I don't have the space for VTP, nor do I want to run VTP. So Yajirobe ally is an obvious add. ChiChi is great because Videl is super fucking weak to physical. Like, super weak. She gets hit with 2 physicals and you just hate your day. It is so easy for her to get knocked to 0. So ChiChi is in there for that extra blanketing against the hyper aggro physical matchups. You know, like Goku, Broly, Turles, whatever it is. You know, Nappa, Clench. Whatever it is that's going to be coming at you with hyper aggro physical. Throwing a ChiChi ally out there at the right time will save you the game. And then Oolong, because Enlightened is real. I don't care what you say. Those of you out there, you know, that you lost Restored Mastery, I understand. Enlightened is so real right now. And they can reuse Dragon Ball powers a billion times. And Oolong ally just decimates that idea. Throwing out Oolong ally first turn against a Enlightened deck, they will just essentially cry. They will. They will cry against you. It's amazing. All right, and we got 2 Dragon Balls in here. You know, Earth 7, obviously, to end combat. Earth 2, to get that extra level lower. One of the things that I found was against Supreme Kai, sometimes this deck just loses. Because if Supreme Kai gets to 3, he just can out-rejuve my mill, pretty much. Out-rejuve any damage that I do. And I don't have enough banishing in here to banish everything, so I needed a way to de-level him outside of combat, and that is the reason that I chose Ball 2. It needs to be in here. The extra de-level is just excellent, and it's just that extra defense against MPPV decks. So that's it for the list, guys, so now let's go over the strategy. So now we're going to go over the strategy section of how you're going to play this deck. So this deck, one of the most important things about tag team in general is going to be the first ally that you choose. Because obviously that's the first choice you're going to make. So, and it's actually extremely important. It's one of the things that I myself as a player fall short on. I often mischoose the ally that I should choose in certain matchups. It's very difficult, and it's extremely matchup dependent. So obviously the one that you want to think about a lot is Roshi. The reason you want to think about this is because it hurts you. There are a lot of cards in this deck that search. Wash searches, lunge searches, flight searches, a lot of searches. Not necessarily that you always want to get Roshi, but I think Roshi is probably the hardest ally to use in this deck because you have to not only know when to play it, know when to tutor him out with Tag Team Mastery, but also just know when to not play it as well. Matchups that you definitely want this guy in first turn: Hercule, 100%; Trunks, Vengeance, 100%; Gohan, Vengeance, 100%. Any personality with a personality power that searches on their personality power, you want them in 100%. Like it just shuts off their personality power, right? So those are the three that I just mentioned right there. Very, very, very strong against those person. It essentially just shuts them down hard, or at least slows them down for the first 2 or 3 combats, for sure. One that I don't get out first too often is Ox King, but against certain matchups I do. So if I was like facing a Turles Ruthless or a Goku Ruthless, because he gets 3 damage from both Ruthless and his powers, and then Turles gets 4, that's a lot of damage. And just getting, I usually like to keep Ox King in my deck to be able to rejuve. But if I was facing a 3 to 4 damage mod on the board just because of personality powers and mastery, I would strongly consider getting Ox King first. Krillin is another one that you definitely want to consider getting first. Any drill control, black drill control, orange drill control, red drill control, if you see amplified, if you see adaptive, not so much adept because they're going to do a lot of their drill tutoring in combat, you may want to go with Ox King for adept. Or actually, I heard Roshi, a good friend of mine, actually Shane, admitted to me that Roshi is an amazing pull against adept because it shuts down the adept mastery as well as extension and a lot of the other drill tutoring. Checkup drill, pretty good. But yep, so Krillin is great against adaptive because typically they're slower decks. Drill control, against, you see Roshi, things like that. So the physical matchups that you don't necessarily want to get Ox King, you may want to grab ChiChi first. Just, brawly matchups or other matchups that you're afraid that they're going to enter on you turn 1 and try to rip your face off. Tutoring ChiChi first is always a good option for that. And likewise, Namekian decks, playing Enlightened. If you see Enlightened, just automatically throw it on Oolong. Don't even think about it. And then, other Namekian matchups or other ball decks. The great thing about Oolong is he actually shuts off Red Bribe. It's really, really good because, Dragon Balls lose all effects and Red Bribe uses a Dragon Ball effect. So, it shuts off Red Bribe. Really good. So, like I was saying before, you don't really want to go aggressive. You want to stay kind of passive. Although, I do go aggressive sometimes. And that's typically when I have early game hands that facilitate that. So early game hands that I would want to see that I would actually enter combat on would be some combination of these 3 cards right here. Because this is a 2 anger card, this is a 2 anger card, and this is just an amazing card. This is a hand. If I had a combination of these, I would just think about entering combat. And of course, like if I was supported with a confrontation or a really good block or a couple blocks, if I had a blockade on board or something like that, if I felt comfortable, then I would go aggressive with these cards just so I could level up to level 2. Because the game doesn't really start until you hit level 2. This deck can get to level 2 very quickly, but it doesn't really start until level 2, which is very important. You want to consider that when you consider going aggressive. Once you're level 2, then you're going to want to go aggressive selectively. This whole deck is very passive. In general, you're not going to go aggressive, but once you're 2, you can selectively go aggressive, especially if you have waiting drill in play. If you have waiting drill in play and then you just want to enter combat and arrest, like if I draw an arrest, I have 3 allies in my discard pile. Now you want to, and let me just talk about this combo for a second, because it depends on the deck you're playing. Let me just put this way. Because in your head, you want to enter combat, the first thing you want to do is activate Videl's +1 mill. And absolutely, that is true. You want to do that. But there are some times where you'll want to enter and just immediately arrest and not go for the full value with the +1 mill. Matchups that you feel like the arrest is threatened. Like you feel like they're gonna stare down you. Or you absolutely need to get the value. If you can afford, like you have to ask yourself risk versus reward, right? So this is slow. Activating this power is slow, and there are going to be a lot of times where you have to weigh risk versus reward. If you're entering on a deck that's gonna, punish you for playing slowly or end combat on you or something like that, you need to be able to get in and get out, get your damage in while you can. So there's a lot of weighing there, and it's hard for me to describe to you guys how to do that. It's just going to have to come from experience, because I haven't used this deck an amazing amount of times. I have used it over the past 2 months, but I would not consider myself an A ranked player with this deck. Definitely a B rank, because I made so many mistakes in that tournament. I ended the tournament 2-3, and one of my losses was to Lambden, and hopefully I'm going to release that video, the Lambden match, before this deck profile video, so you'll get to see that. But yeah, you'll get to see the power of the deck in that video. So if you haven't seen that video, definitely go watch that video. But yeah, and then other than that, like your main win con here is training, and like I was saying before, you only need 1 training to go off. Training in a wash, training in a save, training in a few stretch kicks with excitements in your hand. Once you do that, you can mill pretty much between 10 and 30 cards. I've been down 15, 20 cards left in my life deck, and my opponent has like 40 cards left, and they'll think they got me. They'll enter combat with a 3-card hand, go overly aggressive against me, and I'll just absolutely take advantage of that, go off with the training, completely seal the game in that combat, and unbeknownst to them, they just don't realize the damage potential of this deck. And another reason why Videl is so amazing in this deck, with a high planning count, Videl is ridiculous because you can cycle cards in your hand, and this is so good, guys. Like, I will draw allies into my hand on the defense, and then I'll have an arrest in my hand, or I'll have a decap in my hand. I'll Videl power, trigger +1 mill, drop the ally from my hand, draw a card. Now I have an extra ally in my discard pile to trigger with arrest. I do it all the time. Or I'll have excitement in my hand, I'll draw into a training, I'll trigger +1 mill, discard the training, draw a card, then I'll be able to excitement that training in play. I do it all the time. The cycling is a perfect for this deck. The +1 mill is perfect for this deck. This deck has huge potential, guys, huge potential. And I guarantee you, if you're a good blue player, I encourage you to play this, because I am not a good blue player. But if you are a good blue player, pick this deck up, try this deck out, take this deck and run with it, because I'm telling you, I've been working on this list for a while. I think the list itself is solid. It just needs an A-ranked player to take it and win a tournament with it. So that's it for the list, guys. I encourage you to pick it up. It's one of the more interesting builds of Videl. Please don't hesitate to hit that like button if you like this video. We have tons more match videos coming out. If you have a deck profile video that you want to see, if you have a deck profile video that you want me to push out, comment in the comment section below and tell me what decks do you want to see me make? What decks do you want me to come out with? And as always, turn your dial to Random Number Gaming for weekly updates from the Dragon Ball Z card game.